at the end of 5 years, I could be like, woohoo, I'm debt free. Or at the end of 5 years, I could say, woohoo, I've grown wealth, so I can take care of any of that debt. Debt freedom is a goal, not the goal. The goal is to grow wealth.
What is it most people might get wrong, or what is it that you would advise them to do to be able to, get the attention and break through the noise on social to be able to, see the success that they've been hoping for?
So core thing, once I learned to let go and be myself, right? So I used to, if you look back at any of my old YouTube videos from 10 years ago, I was stiff, hello, my name is Tiffany, the Budgetnista. Now I'm like, girl, your budget, what are you doing? And so what happened, it was maybe 6 or 7 years ago, I was doing a live and someone asked a question and the real Tiffany slipped through. And I was like, oh, let me pull it on back to professional. But the comments went crazy. Yes, girl, yes. And I was like, oh, y'all like that? Okay. So I turned it up a little more, then a little more. Then I saw this, it was either a documentary, or maybe I read an article where Quincy Jones was talking about Oprah. And Oprah said the best, I think she said the best kind of piece of advice or compliment that he ever gave her was that what makes Oprah so special is that she's exactly the same on camera as she is off. And I know it sounds like, okay, so what? No, I don't think people understand when that camera turns on, 99.9% of people change and are different.
That's right.
Because, you're either insecure, you're like, oh, my hair, do I look right? Do I sound right? So there are all these things that go through your head. So someone else shows up, it shows up differently than how when the camera turns off, then you're like, all right, Will, so and if you can do that. So I worked the last 5 years in particular to be the same Tiffany on camera as I am off. And the closer I get, I'm still about 80%, depending, right now, this is all Tiffany. But if I'm doing Good Morning America, I'm like, I'm still about 70 to 80%, but the closer I get, the more opportunities open up because human beings are attracted to what is real and what is genuine. Even if they don't feel it on the surface, they're attracted to the human in you feels the human in me. So if I'm being myself, you feel it and you react to it naturally. And so that's number one, is I've gotten really close to being myself on and off camera. Number two is just some consistency. People be like, oh, people always ask me to mentor them. And they're like, oh, I just started my business a year ago and it's not going as good. I'm like, first of all, sis, you just got here. You're literally a year old. That's like the baby saying, why can't I walk? You gotta crawl. Yeah. And then two, you have a blog or you have a podcast and you're supposed to drop it every Wednesday, but I haven't heard your podcast drop in the last 2 months. You're just not consistent. Literally, some of people are winning only because they do what they say they're going to do, and they do it when they said they're going to do it. That's it. Can you imagine? 80% of winning is just, do I do what I say I'm going to do? Do I do it when I say I'm going to do it? The vast majority of people, quite honestly, they don't. Either they overpromise, they get overwhelmed, they just don't feel like it, they lose interest. So I show up consistently, and I probably say last but not least is, the truth is I try not to take it too seriously, meaning take myself too seriously, and allow me to be in alignment with how, with what is out there for me. It's very easy to get distracted and say, I ought to do this because this person is doing this. I ought to do that. So I really try to stay in my lane because no one can out Tiffany, and so once I, so that's really, it's showing up authentically as myself, consistency, and staying in the lane of Tiffany. And those three things are how I've been able to do New York Times. My book has been, it was 8 weeks on the New York Times bestsellers list. A Good Morning America Today show. I'm the financial expert for The Real. Literally just today, I submitted something for Newsweek. I write for Bloomberg, Wall Street Journal. I mean, there was one point literally where I had to tell CNBC, is there anybody else that I can't do something every week. I'm tired. I'm tired. I can't do an article or thing every week. Do you know any other experts? And I'm not saying that to flex. I'm saying that you want to know why? The Newsweek guy emailed me this morning, said, hey, Tiffany, I'm writing an article and I need some sales tips, some savings tips. And I woke up this morning and I had my meeting. I was like, oh, okay. So I saw it within an hour. I had written him back with the 2 tips and said, please attribute me as Tiffany, the Budgetnista financial educator, author, New York Times bestselling author of Get Good with Money. He was like, wow. Now, guess who's going, when they tight on a deadline, guess what Newsweek journalist is going to hit me back up again? He is, because he's like, yo, Tiffany is boom, bop, boom, bop. Yo, most of these outlets want you to just be primed and ready and consistent, and they'll come back to you over and over because you're super easy to work with.
So let's go in on that content. Content is king. And I wonder what your strategy is. Like, did you pick one distribution channel? Is it like your blog that you just go in on to the, neglect of everything else? Or is it Instagram? Or have you figured out ways to, spread yourself across these different platforms to be able to reach people where they are?
So at first, my only platform, because it really was kind of like the only one available, was Facebook. So I put all of my time and energy into Facebook. But what really helped me to expand is I created, and this was accidental, and sometimes your best ideas are accidental. I created something called my Literature Challenge. It was this free online 3-week course because everyone kept asking me individual questions. And I said, what if I used to be a school teacher for 10 years and I have my master's in education. And I had been teaching this course at my local United Way. And I said, what if I take this course and I put it online? So people who keep asking me the questions, I'm like, take the free course, go to literaturechallenge.com, which is still available, take the free course, right? And so I said, my idea was to get 10,000 people signed up, which I did by, I want to say it was January 2015 or 16. And what happened in the course is that I did this accidentally. Like, I think like Twitter just came out and then maybe Instagram came out like the next year or whatever, but you would come into the course. But what I was doing is effectively, you would see it on Facebook and then you said, you register for the course. Now I have your name and email. So that's one platform. And then when you were in it, I saw someone had this kind of like click to tweet in one of their blog posts that I really liked. And I was like, oh, you mean you can create a message in this box and people can just click it and then it'll tweet out. And I was like, oh, okay. So I added click to tweet. So the way the course worked was that it was an email course. Every day for 3 weeks, I would give you one small assignment that focused on that week's goals, and so now you're in my inbox, now you're on my email list, but then the daily email sent you to the blog to actually get the lesson. So now I got email, I already had Facebook, but now I got email and I got blog visitors. And then when you're on the blog, I'm giving you the tips and I'm saying, click to tweet. Now you follow me on Twitter. And then like 3 or 4 days out of the course, I would create a YouTube video lesson just to change it up. So now you're following me on YouTube. And then when Instagram came out, I'd be like, share your feedback here. And now I got you on Instagram. So that's how I really started to kind of go. I call it like taking people on a tour of your brand. Yeah. Facebook was the door. Then you sat in my living room, which is my email list. Then you used the restroom, which was Twitter. Then you were like, let me see the kitchen, which was Instagram. So before you know it, that one person has visited all of my platforms because of that challenge. So it was the challenge was one of the best tools I ever created, for my brand to grow the community and to bring them around the full tour. So I've got like really robust following on all of those platforms. And so, yeah, that's what it started with one platform. And then I created something that allowed me to bring people through all of the platforms.
Yes, I would imagine that you weren't manually, okay, I'm going to manually do this blog post, then manually do the YouTube, then manually do the Facebook, and then the Twitter, the Instagram. So I would imagine that there were some systems in place there. And my question is, like, how did you get the technical aptitude, or did you hire out that, that opportunity for somebody else to be able to come alongside your team? And because what most people figure is they don't have the resources to go do all those systems as well as
honestly, you did. I disagree. I did that at my brokest. So I said, okay, I want to build this course. I don't have any money, nor am I tech savvy. It's just enough for me to get on Zoom. So I said, well, even now to this day. So I said, okay, well, what do you know how to do, Tiffany? I said, I know how to email. And my blog, I built myself because, they have those blog platforms. It was like, if you can do Facebook, I tell people it's even easier now. Back then it was a little harder. I think I was using blogger.com or whatever, but it's just basically a template that you put your picture on. It looked terrible. That you put your picture on and then you just upload your blog post, right? So I didn't have to be technically savvy. So that course was really just you joined my email list, and every day I emailed you, hey, go to my blog for today's lesson. So there was no real tech savvy stuff I needed other than, do you know how to send an email? I think I was using like Mad Mimi at the time,
Yeah. I remember that.
and so, right. So it wasn't even like some, like now we're using Fusionsoft, but so it wasn't even some sophisticated CRM. It was just a regular email list. I got you on the email list. And then every day I said, here's day one of the Literature Challenge. This week we're talking about budgeting. Learn how to create your budget, click here. And the here took you to the blog post. So ahead of time, I wrote out the 21 blog posts and I wrote out the 21 emails. And then I just said, Mad Mimi, on this day, send this email. On day 2, send this email. On this day. And so what happened is that I found that my audience was like, this is so great. And they were messaging me. And then that's when Facebook groups came out. So at the end of each blog post, I said, want to talk about today's lesson? Join us in the group. And then my Facebook group became the place where it was like the community. I didn't have to build that. So the first like challenge or 2 challenges I did completely solo because I didn't need any super tech savvy. I knew how to use Facebook. I knew how to send an email, and the blog, it wasn't great, but I knew how to at least use the blog template that they created for me. So you don't need, and to this day, that's still basically the way the literature challenges are run. And over 1 million people have done one or more of my challenges. 1 million on that same simple,
it's big.
Send me your email, go to the blog. Send me your email, go to the blog. That's it.
Good for you. I mean, it's a lot of people in your sphere. And so I want to talk a little bit about, because we have so many conversations in our world about there not being enough capital for Black people to start businesses, not enough venture capital. There's an increasing amount of angel capital, but there's still such a disparity, right? And so for the men and women who will be listening to this and are using either their savings or their personal credit cards to build their business, how do you advise them to gauge to what extent they should be leveraging their personal holdings, their security, to invest in a company? How do you advise them to use that money that should be there for the rainy day, that should be there, the bridge over troubled water, to invest in their thing?
So I'll say this, that there is a place for VC funding. I don't have any, where I am 100% funded, and we don't have any debt. And we made $10 million last year. This is just us, our little Black business, just doing what we do, serving Black people.
Yeah. Right.
And so, but 10 million to one of these fast growth companies is like, what? Because it's 10 million in 10 years that we got here. For some people, they're like, what? We did that in our first 6 months. Yeah, but then somebody else owns your company. You're like, like I make 10, I take home 7. Do you take home 7? Because I know them people not letting you take home that big salary because that business belonged to them. Right. So there's something to be said for that. I remember I was meeting with a young woman who started this great brand. It's in Target. She's doing really well. And she was saying the only way to really have wealth is that you have to have an exit. And I was like, that's not true. But that I get it because she had VC funds, embedded into her business. So yes, but in general, I have friends who regret taking money and friends who are so glad that they took money. To me, there's no right or wrong. You have to just decide for yourself. If you're not going to take money, be okay with growing slow. I don't know when did it become like you have to grow super fast. And in doing so, I don't know if you've ever listened to the podcast, How I Built This. Sometimes you listen and you're like, okay, so you grew this $1 billion company and now you owe 1%. Well, damn, I don't want that. You know what I mean? Right. Honestly, I'm not interested in making someone else wealthy if I'm all the way real, other than my audience that I'm helping. I'm not interested in growing something and then you like, yeah, go ahead, girl. You know what that's called? Slavery. Our people we out that now. And so I say this is that, be willing to grow slowly. I never grew more than what the company can bear. I did take leaps here and there, especially when it came to hiring, but I would take a calculated leap where I would be like, for example, my first COO, like I had already been in business for like 4 or 5 years, but she was really good at organization. And that's something that I lacked. And so I remember telling her, I'm launching this new business. I had the Budgetnista business. I've had several businesses. The Budgetnista business, which is the business of Tiffany. So it's like my New York Times bestselling book, Get It With Money. My other books, it's speaking, spokesperson work, brand ambassador work, basically the business of Tiffany. But I said I wanted to create a business that wasn't the business of Tiffany. So my second business, Literature Academy. So I told my COO at the time. I don't have no money, but what I do have, like, I don't have any money to pay you now from the business because that business has not launched yet. But she wanted to make, I think it was like $3,000 a month. And I said, okay, I've got 6 months worth of savings in my personal savings. I had $18,000 I had to cobble together, So I said, I got 6 months. We have 6 months to get Literature Academy off the ground so it can start paying you. So we worked our behinds off and we did it. By month 6, right when my savings was done, the Academy launched. And during that launch, the launch was like a week. We made $70,000 during that launch. Now, here's the thing: it sounds cute, but we spent it cost us 50 to make that 70, right? But because my Literature Academy is still in existence, it's a subscription-based business. So although we spent 50 to make that 70, that's because we had to build everything. But then the subscription started to roll in, so it was enough to cover her salary. So that's why I said you want to make calculated risks. Like, okay, I'm not just going to drain my savings account and hope and wish and pray. We had a strategic plan in place. Like, if I pay more, if I spend this expense, how can I expect to get that money back? If you don't have that plan in place, then you're likely to lose all of that money. I'm not willing to do that. So that's what I suggest to folks, that if you are going to, use your own money, do so, make those calculated risks and be clear of, this is how I'm going to get my money back. This is the timeline and time frame. If we don't, here's the backup plan to that. We could probably go way faster. I mean, honestly, we could probably be at $20-30 million a year right now in business, but that would cause us to grow in a way that's quite honestly not sustainable. Because you hear people like, you can make 20, but be spending 21 to make 20. That's what some folks are doing. I'm not interested in that. We are 46% profit. We've got a healthy profit margin.
So what do you say to the people who says, hey, but look, you could be, a $2 billion business if you became something else. And, you might own 0.1%, but that's still a lot of money compared to the 10 million.
So I'll say this, that I don't disagree with that. And so I'm actually building something out externally from that. Meaning that for me, I'd like to have a little bit more diversity. So I have the Budgetnista, that's the business of Tiffany. I've got the Literature Academy that is slow and steady, wins the race. It's like amazing money for me every year. And I'm building another business where I'm doing just that. That is going to be like, it is my intention to grow it in the next 3 years and sell it for about $200 to $300 million and take my cut from that. And so to your point, I'm thinking about that too, but I needed, for me, security was most important because I had been so financially insecure for so long that the Budgetnista and the Literature Academy gave me that. So now that my house is paid off, my rental property home is paid off, my parents' house is paid off, my student loan debts are gone, I'm literally debt-free like a toddler. So now that I'm in a safe, comfortable place, I have a business that generates money for me no matter what, because it's a subscription base. Now I can take the risk for me. Now I can take that risk, because if the risk doesn't work out, guess what? I will still make 7 figures a year. So for me, all of my risks I take are not really risks. I'm like, I know I could go for $1 billion right away, but let me just go for my $1 million, feel good, make sure everybody good, we all fed. And now I could take the leap from a place that's not a place of fear. You know what I mean? Like, I can take the leap from a place of like, regardless of what happens, I know I'm going to be okay. Let's just go for it. So that's what's happening in phase 3 of my business development.
So, there's this quote that says, how you do one thing is how you do everything. Right. Yep. And I wonder if you can't manage your personal finances, can you be expected, or can you manage business finances? Because I imagine some people will have the excuse of like, look, I'm not making enough, so I'm always messing up because I'm always trying to play catch up. But they may have this idea that could potentially get them out of that situation. But how can they be trusted with the money to do it? So I wonder, to what extent is that excuse valid?
I think it's very valid because, one, at the very least, if you are stressed personally when it comes to your finances, then it's going to be very hard for you to develop a business without that fear in the background. Oh, we really got to make money. It's hard. I'm not saying that. Now, here's the thing. I developed the Budgetnista from that space and place because I had nothing, but it's really difficult to stay focused because now you're making choices where you're just like, is this good in the long term or is this a quick buck? But that quick buck might mean, so for example, let's just say you partner with a brand and they're like, hey, Tiffany, you know, like beginner Tiffany, we'll pay you $10,000 for us to be able to use your likeness for the next year. In the beginning, you're like, ooh, I'll take that 10,000 because I need it. Like, you know, I got to pay these bills. And then what happens is, as you're growing and developing your brand, you have all of these other brands that want to work with you, but guess who can't work with them? You, because you're under contract for that year. And there was a $5,000, a $2,000, a two, a three, a four, altogether, that's $50,000 that you could have locked in. But because you're locked in for that 10, you're like, dang. And I'm sharing that from like experience where I've locked myself in because I'm like, I need the money now. And I'm like, okay. But I learned the lesson to say, if someone's going to lock me down, it has to be a significant amount of money, more than what I can anticipate based upon last year, what I would make if I was going to partner with multiple people. So, but if you are reckless with your, because I've seen people who are reckless with their personal finances, not just I'm having a financial hard time because maybe you lost your job or whatever, but reckless, you're likely going to also be reckless with your business finances. And if you have the pleasure and the privilege of having a team, you put everybody at risk. I don't play that. And so, you know, you do want to get yourself financially together, because also too, you're going to work with financial professionals. Like you might have a CFO, you might have a controller, you might have a bookkeeper, you might have an accountant, but you're going to want to know what you're looking at, you know? And so you can't just give all the financial control away. And so getting your personal finances in order is definitely a major key in making sure your business is also sustainable.
You know, you talked about how you said, referenced several times how you know, you were in that situation. You know, you built your business from a state of being broke. And I wonder what was the break that you had that set you on a different trajectory. So like, I'm broke today, but tomorrow, because this thing happened, I'm finally free. You know, the proverbial sense of free. I'm out of those weeds. And how can we be intentional about making sure that that break happens?
So for me, I remember for me, it was connection to different people. Like the first 5 years, it was just me in this little hole. I had got myself to like, I think I got myself to $150,000 a year in business, which was really $35,000 take home. Those of y'all who know will know, like, because you got to pay bills and you got to pay Uncle Sam. So people are like, oh, you make six figures? I'm like, no, my business makes six figures. I make less than I did as a preschool teacher. Right. So don't let people fool you when they be like, oh, I make, I'm like, is that your business or is that you?
Right.
You know, and I'm always transparent with our number because I think that's important. Right. So what transformed it for me, because it took me almost 6 years to get to six figures. And then I met, so the Budgetnista is still 100% mine, but I met my business partner. He wasn't my business partner at the time. His name was Jabril. And he was like, why are you doing it this way? You could do it this way. It was a new injection of new information. He's like, for example, he said, have you ever heard of an affiliate link? And I'm like, no. He was like, well, what tools and resources do you use? And I said, here's a list. He said, do you suggest them to your audience? I said, yeah, all the time. And he was like, do you know some of these companies will pay you to suggest them? I did not know that. And he was like, girl, make a list. And we found all, like, you know, of the 10 businesses, maybe there were 3 that had an affiliate program that was public. So instead of just giving their regular link like business.com, it was business.com/Tiffany. Yep. And all of a sudden, that was an extra $1,000 a month that was coming in for something I was already doing. And I was like, oh, so what I learned is that after partnering with Jabril to learn that, there were other people that I started to connect with that, like, you know, you're really looking to either learn from them virtually, meaning like watching their videos, listening to their podcasts, whatever, or, you know, sometimes you get to partner in real life or you go to networking events. You need to be amongst people who have done it or are currently doing it, because it will expand your capacity. So what helped me go from literally 5 to 6 years took me to get to six figures. It took me 2 years after that to get to 7. And then it took me a year after that to get to 8. You see how quickly that learning curve was like, boop, bop, boop, bop, 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 you know? So I was like, okay, it's the expansion of capacity. You know, like I was thinking so small. And even now I fight to not think small, that to think deeper, to think wider, to expand my capacity for what is possible. Because I was just thinking, I have a business coach now. And I was telling him the other day, like, I don't know, I keep getting this like vision that I'm going to, like, you know, make $50 million. and I told him this idea that I'm rolling out. He was like, are you sure that's what it's saying? 50 million? I was like, yeah. He was like, that idea is worth more like 200 million based upon the market. And I was like, okay. He said, now the 50 million is likely going to be what your take home is. Maybe that's what your vision is telling you. But in my mind, I'm like, 200 million? No, because it feels so impossible. And then he invited me to this like entrepreneur kind of like shindig, where literally everybody there are people there who are like, oh, we made 200 million last week. It was so great. So we're going to sell the company forever. Everybody ain't on social flexing. So that normalization of that, like, oh yeah, we built our company. Like, me and, I met him at the last meeting. We built a company in 6 months to $1 million a month. We just sold it for 70 million. I think we should do that again. That's fun. And you're like, wait, what? That expand. I'm over here sweating like, let me get to my 10 million. And they're like, oh, that's so cute, 10. So how's that going? And meanwhile, these people that you would never see on social are just making money at like a level that seems so insane and crazy, because we don't see it posted on social, because they're not trying to get robbed and they don't want everybody knowing their business.
Yeah.
And so for me, and for anyone who's wanting to go to the next level, it's going to require you to expand your capacity. And some of the best ways to do that is take a look. It's in a book, Reading Rainbow. Read. I mean, damn, people don't want to read. Read. Like, if you want to read, this is my Vanna Black moment. Get good with money. 10 simple steps to becoming financially whole. My New York Times best-selling book, available at getgoodwithmoney.com. But no, sincerely, like I'm reading Atomic Habits, right? Which is like helping me to open up my mind. Like, okay, before I read David and Goliath by Malcolm Gladwell, he's one of my favorite writers. Like Malcolm Gladwell writes really amazing books that can be used for your business, but they're really books about kind of like psychology, where David and Goliath, he talks about, was David really the underdog? That sometimes really being the underdog is your best asset, and how to use that. So, and before that, I read Delivering Happiness by Tony Hsieh. So he's the owner of Zappos. Yep. He passed away recently, but he was a billionaire. And his thing was all about company culture. So it had me looking at my own company's culture to what we could do better. So I'm constantly reading to expand my capacity. That's one. Two, talk to people. Talk to people who are doing similar, better, whatever than you, so you can think beyond what you know. You don't know all the things. The best thing that you can know is you don't know anything. Like expand your capacity that way. And the third thing is expand your capacity through experiences. Nothing teaches you better than actually seeing, tasting, doing. One thing I do like once a month is I find one of the wealthiest neighborhoods around here and I drive through, because it's a reminder that 50 people in this neighborhood figured out how to get themselves a $5 million home. Love that. Sis, they ain't smarter than you. Love that. As a teacher, one of the things you learn as a teacher is that 80% of your student population is of average intelligence, average meaning smart. 10% have challenges, where they really need additional assistance, and 10% are super, super smart, like geniuses. These people that live in these houses, it's the 80%. It's not Bill Gates that lives here. It's some regular people. You part of the 80, you can live here too. So I'm always trying to expand my capacity. Like, no. Let me experience that. Like, okay, they're not smarter than me. Why can't I live here? Of course you can. And so experiences, people, and books are one of the greatest ways to expand your capacity. And that's the difference between where you are to the astronomical growth that's ahead of you.
Love it. I love it. And you started off that response talking about something that's super important for entrepreneurs, and that was taxes, right? And, increasingly I see things on social that talk about how the tax code was written to incentivize entrepreneurship, business owners, and employing people and growing enterprise. What I wonder is, like, is there anything missing from that conversation that's not happening far enough to where regular people, maybe leaving money on the table or paying too much to Uncle Sam? Like, how can we take advantage of this code if we are entrepreneurs, and if you're not planning on being an entrepreneur, but still, try to figure out ways to, keep some of that money to be able to deploy it towards, building wealth?
I'll say this, that if you're not an entrepreneur, there's not that much in the tax code that's to your benefit, quite honestly. This is why you hear about that. People say the middle class is basically carrying everybody else. So those who are economically depressed, don't pay enough taxes, and those who are super wealthy are not paying their fair share. So because the tax code is not meant for regular people. you know? So, but if you're in business, because here's the thing, they take when I was a school teacher, I had no say. My check, it was already gone. I'm like, well, damn, can I just take a look at my money? No. They're like, before you even get your money, we've already decided, sis. And what can happen is maybe we took too much. Okay, girl, once a year, we give you some of your pennies back. Call that refund. You just giving the government a free loan. Like that's the way taxes work for like, you know, for people who work, right? Who have a regular job. Now, certainly you can sit down with your accountant, because even before they used to be like, oh, buy a house. There's a great, you know, tax benefit. And even they lowered that. You know, purchasing a home, you don't get to write off as much not income tax, as much property tax, real estate tax as you used to. It's capped, right? You know, and so like it's difficult, quite honestly, I'm not gonna lie. But you know, when you have a business, here's the thing: small businesses account for like 60% of the economy, 60% or more of the economy. This is why during the pandemic and quarantine, the federal government was like trying to figure out what to do. This is why the PPE loan came out, because you want to know why? It's because they understood if small businesses on a whole goes under, we all go under. They are the backbone and the support of this economy. That's why the tax code is written for businesses. We need you to survive so that we all survive. You know, small business is the mama of the family. If mama ain't good, ain't nobody good, you know? Yeah. And so what they do is, before it used to be like, okay, so if as teacher Tiffany, it was before you get your check, we take your taxes. If you're a business, it says, okay, here's your check. But wait, did you, you know, pay employees? Great. It reduces your taxes. Did you, you know, pay for rent? Great. It reduces your taxes. Did you, I don't know, invest in something? Great. It reduces your taxes. So if you made $1 million, but you spent $1 million, the government says you made $0, no taxes for you. This is how some of the wealthiest of the wealthiest do it. They make $1 billion, spend $1 billion, they owe nothing. Whereas you literally, which is so crazy, my tax rate as a preschool teacher, I think I want to say was 24%, 25%. Yeah. My tax rate, my business tax rate as an 8-figure year business was 21%. That's insane. So for those who don't understand, meaning the percentage of money that I have to pay taxes on was higher than when I was a preschool teacher than it was me like running this multi-million-dollar business. Yeah. That's insane. And it's quite honestly, it's unfair. And so some of the things that I think that people don't think of is that there are levels to like how the government looks at you. So if you are a sole proprietorship, basically taxes are passed through, meaning your business makes money and it passes through onto your taxes. So if your business makes money, make sure you write off as much as you can that your business actually spent money to manage your business. So you can't just write off like, I got a dog. Does the dog work for the business? You know, you know, but all that excess money like filters onto you as a sole proprietor. You might have a partnership, right? So these are all LLCs. You might have a partnership. So a partnership is just like you and someone else, you know, still at the end of the day, let's just say your business made $1 million and you spent $500,000 to run the business. The $500,000 that are left, that's between you and your partner. You both have to pay tax on the $250,000. That's right. Right. And then let's just say you're like, okay, I want to bump up to like where one of my companies is an S Corp. An S Corp is still an LLC, right? But the difference with get to Lion. So I bumped up to an S Corp because when you're an S Corp, I am now an employee of my business. Up until then, so partnership, sole proprietorship, you know, that I am self-employed. But when I'm an S Corp, now Tiffany officially works for the Budgetnista and I don't have to pay self-employment tax. So once you get around 6 figures, it might make sense to become an S Corp. You have to talk to your accountant, of course, because I can save on self-employment tax. So they have to do the math. Is it better for you to pay self-employment tax and remain self-employed? Or now that you're making more money, is it better for you to become an employee of your business? Now, the thing about an S Corp that's tricky that most people don't realize, it's still a pass-through. Meaning, and I didn't realize this because I remember one year our business made, like the first year that our business made like $1 million. And I said, woohoo. Now, I paid myself a salary and I also did something called an owner's draw. That's just when owners take money out of their own company. So of the million, let's just say we spent half of it, $500,000, but I saved $250,000 because I was like, you know what? I want to save some money because every business, ideally you want to have 3 to 6 months, maybe more money saved, depending what kind of business you're in. I saved it. When I got my taxes, it was like, girl, you owe more money than I even received. And I said, why? And I remember at first I was paying it. And then it wasn't until I had my CFO, I got a CFO. She said, girl, it's because even though you didn't pull the money out of the business, it's saved. The government don't care about no savings. Any money not spent in business, when you're an LLC, which S corps are still LLCs, any money not spent in business is your personal responsibility.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay. So I learned now that whatever money I didn't pull out of the business, I make the business give me that money, give me the taxes that for the money I did not receive. And then I put together the taxes for the money that I did receive, and then I pay my taxes. Now, when you're a C Corp, you don't have to do that. This is like what Amazon, all these huge companies are, that you can keep money in your business and not be taxed on it as an individual. Now, there are some financial benefits from why I'm not a C Corp versus an S Corp, but because with a C Corp, you really don't do owner's draws, which I'm like, I live my owner's draws. So right? So, but you want to sit down, but you see how like people don't, in the beginning, it's okay to just be like, look, I'm an LLC, I'm a partnership, or I'm a sole proprietorship. That's fine. But I think not enough people like forward look, like, forecast and say, well, what does this look like? I was just did this like live on IG the other day. And I said, so many people just don't ask the right questions. I know friends of mine that can't wait to be in the rooms with all the fancy schmancy people. And I'm like, what does it matter when you still broke, sis? Did you ask questions? Did you ask the, such and such, well, I can't figure out my taxes. Can you suggest an accountant for me? Did you ask such and such, what social media manager are you using? You just in this room taking pictures?
Wow.
No, I've literally been in rooms and I'm like, let me make a beeline for her, because I heard that she was able to develop this amazing software and I need to learn. I don't care about who else is in the room. I'm looking for the person that maybe I can glean something from, because other than that, I don't care about a social media flex. Yeah. And so, but yeah, that taxes component and the way you structure your business, is really important. So sitting down with an actual accountant to figure out, or your CFO to figure out the best possible solution for you and your future is really going to be important.
So there's so much there, and there's so many people who listen to this who will get so much value out of that in their journey to entrepreneurship. But there are some also who want to be Tiffany the teacher, but are just trying to figure out how they take advantage of technology and the tax code and scale to be able to figure out, okay, how do I, supplement this income that I have with other things that I could be doing? So knowing what you know now, what does Tiffany the teacher do to be able to put herself in a position to, number one, build that secondary or third or fourth income stream, and potentially maybe she doesn't want to become an entrepreneur, but take advantage of the opportunities entrepreneurs have? So,
and honestly, if I had been a teacher, I was on that road there. Like you have to live below your means, for the love of God and teenage baby Jesus. I mean, people ask me all the time, I'm like, if you make 100, you spend 100, you're not going to grow wealth. Where's the money going to come from?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I want you to think about wealth like an apple, right? So you get this apple and you're like, I can eat half this apple and sustain myself and put the other half and plant it. Now I'm gonna eat all of it. But your neighbors stay planting half the apple or a third of their apple. And eventually, because it does take time, you start to see they got a little tree in front. You're like, look at that little raggedy tree. Meanwhile, I'm over here eating good off this apple. And you're like, you could eat a little half apple. Oh, sorry for you. Half apple looks like, a less fancy car, a roommate. Half apple looks like not as much vacations. Half apple looks like, not the new bag. And you're like, I'm over here with the new bag, all the things. And then a couple of years, because success is compounding. So a couple of years go by, all of a sudden that little raggedy tree in the beginning, which was their investment, is starting to grow. You're like, what kind of tree is that? That's cute. A couple of years after that, while you're still eating your full apple, that tree starts to bear fruit. And guess what it is? Apples. And guess what happens when they cut on them apples? There's more seeds inside.
Yeah.
So if you live below your means, you will have the means to save and invest. So even when I was teaching preschool, I lived well below my means. My sister was my roommate. I had a car that I bought from the lot. It was a used car. It was like 2 or 3 years old. I remember it was a 99 Nissan Altima, and I bought it for $5,500. It was maybe 2002, like 2 or 3 years older, right? Yeah. And so I was eating half my apple And people were like, oh, so sorry for you, Tiffany. This is preschool teacher Tiffany. But by the time I remember I had gotten up to like $30,000 in my retirement account, I said, okay. I was slowly but surely getting there. So that's one of the ways, as regular, if I was still preschool teacher Tiffany, by now I would honestly probably have at least a couple $100,000 in my retirement account because I was already well on my way. I was living below my means. I was saving and I was investing. And then you have to invest in yourself. Like my sister Carol, for example, she is an engineer, but just like so many folks, you know, furloughed, lost her job. So in that time, you know, she started taking every type of investment course she could find, started to learn how to trade. And she was like, she's like, now I'm paper trading, meaning that she uses one of those simulator accounts. She's been averaging $900 a day, paper trading. Wait till she actually that's off $3,000. So putting $3,000 in, getting back her 900 plus her 3. So she's like, okay, in another month or two, I'm going to start with some real money. Like, that's incredible. Let's just say she just does 2 trades a week, $900, you know, for the week, that's $1,800. I say like $2,000 a week, 4 weeks in a month. That's $2,000, $4,000, $6,000, $8,000 a month. You see what I mean? So and this is just a regular, she doesn't want to start her own business, all that stuff. She's just like, I'm going to live below my means. That's what she did because she was on unemployment, got that unemployment bonus, got that, got that $1,200 check. She's got 2 kids. So she got that money. And she just applied for, she was like, girl, they've got this rental insurance program that no one's applying for, that you should if you're needing it. They'll pay 12 months of your back rent, because I know we had the moratorium where you didn't have to pay, and up to 3 months at one time of your forward rent. And then they'll keep renewing that if you keep applying. So she was like, so with all of that help, she has stashed her money as a regular person, learned to invest, and now she's going to be able to use that money to grow wealth. So that's how regular people can grow wealth without having to start a business, is that you live below your means, you save, then you invest. So you can invest in the market like she's doing. You can say, you know what, I'm going to, when the housing market crashes, I'm going to get me one of these properties that people can't afford because I'm going to have the money saved by then. You know, you could start like something on the side. When I used to teach, I also tutored. I used to tutor like crazy on the side for extra money. So you don't have to start a business to grow wealth.
So finally, there was this blog post I read that you put up, and I'm so excited for your answer for this, because I'm actually read you what you wrote, and then I'll post my question. You said, I'm saying that as much as I love and value tackling debt, it's important to remember that doing so will not build wealth. And so many of us just can't wait for the day where we have 0 credit card debt, we don't owe the bank anything. And you're saying that, look, that's fine and dandy, but that doesn't mean that you are on the track to building wealth.
Debt freedom does not equal wealth. Well, so I've got a nephew. He doesn't have a car note. He doesn't have student loan debt. He doesn't have a mortgage. He doesn't owe anyone, and he's broke. You want to know why he's broke? Because Roman is 5 years old. He's turning 6 in 2 weeks. So we laugh at that, right? Because you're like, but if debt freedom equals wealth, why your toddler ain't rich?
Wow.
For real, think about that. Why your baby ain't rich, stunting on the gram? Because debt freedom doesn't equal wealth. Debt freedom equals debt freedom. That's it. You know, I had to learn the lesson the hard way. Well, I was $300,000 in debt after the Great Recession, and it was $50,000 student loan debt, $30,000 to $40,000 in credit card debt, and then the rest was mortgage, right? So I was in all of this debt, and I was like, I basically relinquished my property. So I got rid of the $200,000 in debt, because then they would forgive you. Basically, they were able to snatch your property, which they did. Thanks, Chase. And then I told student loans, sis, I will see you when I see you. Deferment for like, that's why I tell people, like, why are you refinancing out of your federal student loan? People are pissed now. I know somebody who refinanced in 2019. I said, now you got to pay, because all of this moratorium and not having to pay your student loan debt, that's for federal student loans. I tell people, if you have a federal student loan, you have certain protections that they cannot offer you to private student loans. So I had federal student loans. So I was able to say deferment, forbearance. I'm just going to focus on this credit card debt. So I lived simply for like 3 years and worked hard to pay off that $35,000 worth of credit card debt. Simply, I'm talking about like shopping at my mama's freezer. Like, what y'all got? Simply. And I was 30. I wasn't like, oh, I'm 21 now. I had roommates on top of roommates on top of roommates. It was like living in a dorm, you know? But I lived that way. I paid off that credit card debt because it was the most expensive debt. My interest rate was just too high. you know? And then I said, okay, because I was big on debt free, debt free, debt free. Let me work on my student loan debt. I said, well, dang, the last 3 years, girl, it's been tight. You owe $35,000 in credit card debt. You paid it off. Congratulations. You owe $50,000 in student loan. So am I going to have to live like this for 4 more years? I don't want it. I don't want it. I said, you know what? I think you're going about this the wrong way. Credit card debt is good to be aggressive with because it's so expensive. You really almost can't outwin the loss of credit card debt.
Yeah.
Because the cost of credit card debt is going to be hard for you to duplicate in the market. Not impossible, but so I said, okay, I'm actually not going to focus on the student loan debt the way I did my credit card debt. How about I focus the next 5 years instead on growing my business? And I did. The student loan debt, I was like, here's your little minimum, leave me alone. And I put my time, my energy, my money into growing the Budgetnista. And 5-6 years in, I had the lump sum of the $52,000 plus money.
Yeah.
So I was able to write that check, pay it off, and I was able to write a $120,000 check to pay off the rest of my parents' mortgage. And I was able to buy the house I live in now for $180,000 and renovate it for another $180,000. And I was able to get a rental property. The city was selling tax lien properties for $10,000, and it cost like $120,000 to renovate it. But you see, it was like by the end of that, so at the end of 5 years, I could be like, woohoo, I'm debt free. Or at the end of 5 years, I could say, woohoo, I've grown wealth, so I could take care of any of that debt. Debt freedom is a goal, not the goal. The goal is to grow wealth.